Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope everybody had a great Halloween. Just sharing the link for this stream. With my peeps. Hope everybody's doing good today. Alright, so today we are going to rewatch this interview with Lauren from Hidden True Crime and Susan Hendricks. I got to thinking about it because whenever the trial first started, I knew about Delphi from the time it happened and kept it in the back of my mind for a long time. I didn't follow it online or anything, so whenever I knew they got Keegan Kline, and I knew that there was a lot of online stuff happening about side by sides, and I just never fully followed it all the way, but let's see, can you hear me okay? Everybody can hear me okay? Anyway, I never followed it. So whenever trial came around, I just assumed Richard Allen was guilty, and that whenever trial started is whenever I started really watching Hidden True Crime, and I got Susan Hendricks' book from the library, and I checked it out to just kind of brush up on the case and everything like that. And I just wanted to go back after learning what I've learned and rewatch this to see if I have any different thoughts about it. So, yeah. Let's see.
It is Lauren, and I wanted to bring you an interview with someone very special to me, someone that I got to know during the Richard Allen trial. Her name is Susan Hendricks, as you can see there on her screen. For those of you watching, for those of you listening, I am with the Susan Hendricks. She was an HLN anchor, as well as you were on CNN Pipeline, CNN anchor.
It was CNN. I was on Anderson Cooper's show for about 5 years, doing the headlines and stuff like that. That was an experience. I'm grateful that I was on that show.
Yes, and that's where I first saw you, and actually you lived my dream, because when I started broadcasting, I said my main goal was to be a CNN on CNN. So you did it, I didn't, but thank you for coming on my show.
Oh my gosh, it's great to be on.
Yes. And I got to know Susan. Mostly, I want to introduce, though, that you are the author. You're an author of Down the Hill. And I'll actually bring that up. Tell us a little bit about when you wrote this book, and I will share it here on the screen.
Well, Lauren, I covered the story when it broke. It was 2017, as you know, when the girls went missing. So the next day it was breaking news when they found the bodies of Abby and Libby. And that's when I first covered it on the set. And in my ear, as you know, being in the same business as I was, in my ear, the producer would say, okay, we have breaking news. They discovered these bodies, Delphi, Indiana. You'll be interviewing a man who owns the property where the bodies were discovered. So that, of course, is Ron Logan. So they say after the commercial break, you'll talk to him, mic check. And I said, Ron, can you hear me? Yes, I can. And then coming back from break, it was Ron Logan saying, nothing like this had ever happened here. And my boys would play down there. And so that was the beginning of this. Little did I know, fast forward, and HLN sent me there and said, we're going to do some more of a long form on this story. And HLN really didn't do that. We were mostly trials with Casey Anthony, Jodi Arias. So I said, okay, let's go. So I went there and met then Detective Jerry Holman, Tobe Lesenby, he was the sheriff at the time. I met Becky and Mike, and I don't think I met Tara at the time. So that was the first time, and Kelsey, of course, and she took us, two photojournalists, producer, myself, to the Monon High Bridge, which looks very different than it does today. So that was the beginning of this. And they were so open and so warm, and I felt horrible seeing pictures of Libby everywhere, welcoming me and the producers and everyone into their kitchen. Mike made spaghetti and meat sauce that day. So it just made me feel so different than the other stories, because as you know, Lauren, the cycle keeps on going, the news cycle of the next story, the next story, the next story. And you're not really able to get close to anyone when you're covering these. So it was a new experience, and I felt for them, and I noticed how strong Kelsey was. I think she was, at the time I met her, 18. And fast forward 2019, the press conference, that was the second time I went there with Superintendent Doug Carter saying,
Yes.
Change of direction in the new sketch.
Hidden in plain sight. Hidden in plain sight. Yes.
Exactly. Or we believe you lived in Delphi or from Delphi, and we believe you could be in this room.
Yes.
And I'll never forget that day, because
The change of direction.
everyone's in the room. I'm kind of sitting on the carpeting, front row there, and thinking, oh my gosh, in this room, and taking notes. And I recorded it on my phone, and I put my phone down, so I still have that. But you could tell I'm writing notes. And then I was on
Wow.
CNN Live for the next, I don't know, 15 hours of like, oh my gosh, was he in the room, and all the questions. So as I got to know these families, and as I was watching, as it was occurring, the investigation, I thought this could be a book about what the families are experiencing from
She thought, how can I capitalize on their trauma?
their point of view.
And it's an incredible book. You know, I listened to it actually on Audible, because that's what we did when we were at the trial. There was no time to leisurely read, right? But I had my ears on, and I was actually listening, and it was so touching to me hearing Kelsey German actually read the foreword. I was so touched by that. I want to say thank you for that, and thank you for not just including the family, but having her first and right there. You know, let's hear from Kelsey before we even delve in what this was like for her. That was really touching and moving.
That really showed her how she could capitalize on victims in the future. She really got a good idea off of that.
And she really is an excellent writer. She told me when I first met her, before the book was even a thought, about how she loved to write and how it was healing for her. And I thought about her writing the foreword, and she said yes. And I was so grateful that she did. And it just shows you hear her when she also tracked it, the loss, such a loss of her sister, not just a sister, but her best friend. And Lauren, I know that you met the families. Not only did you meet them, but they really appreciated, and still do, what you do and your work. And that meant so much, because there is, believe it or not, for those who don't know this, vitriol in the true crime space. I don't know, we could talk for hours about how that came about. And
Yeah, well, let's talk. We can talk. Yeah.
Let's talk.
And it's not, I'm just gonna open this. Wait.
Oh, Jesus Christ. These ladies. These ladies.
And
Oh, too.
I think, but early on with Kelsey, of course, she wasn't expecting any of this. She was thrown into this whirlwind, if you will. She was on Dr. Phil soon after, and this crime got a lot of attention, Lauren, as you know, because of what Libby caught on her phone, the man on the bridge and the walking and the voice. So it's rare that you get in a case like this to hear who authorities believed. At the time, first, they just wanted to talk to that person, and then they believed that he was involved, whoever bridge guy was. And it's rare that you're able to hear the voice of someone you believed murdered those girls. And Mike, early on, and I repeat this because it stuck with me, Libby's grandfather, who she was living with, said, Susan, I really think she was going to come home and say, Grandpa, look at this creepy guy that we saw on the bridge. And that never happened.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm sure that's exactly what she would have done, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
And just
gosh.
so after that, of he could be in this room and the change of direction, I remember Detective Holman calling me, and it's so good to see him at the trial. It really is full circle. I know he's poured his heart into this investigation, but he did call me. We did a special when I got back. HLN did, and we had all these guests, attorneys, former FBI, in a circle panel on set. And he said, Susan, give me a call when he can. So I called him and he joked and he said, you sure mention the FBI a lot. And I said, well, you don't talk to me about anything. And he said, well, that was our idea, not theirs, the press conference. So, and I thought, oh my gosh, well, who's that? So, and now knowing what I know now and looking back, it was kind of this.
So he was jealous that she mentioned the FBI. That's interesting.
Break, which obviously I think happens a lot more than we know. You see it in the movies. And he said, Susan, give me a call when he can. So I called him and he joked and he said, you sure mention the FBI a lot. And I said, well, you don't talk to me about anything. And he said, well.
That's bizarre.
That was our idea, not theirs, the press.
That was our idea, not theirs. So that means it wasn't the FBI's idea, it was theirs. I mean, like I just said, but.
Conference. So, and I thought, oh my gosh, well, who's that? So, and now knowing what I know now and looking back, it was kind of this break, which obviously I think happens a lot more than we know. You see it in the movies, but a break of like, okay, who has control? Who's in control of this investigation? And we found out now that Superintendent Doug Carter, who testified at the trial, said that yes, he did say, okay, FBI are free of your services for us, but he said they knew that they could call them at any time to pitch in. But the day-to-day investigative process was really with Indiana State Police.
Which was a horrible investigation. The worst investigation.
And I have so many questions.
And why the fuck is the Indiana State Police calling Susan Hendricks?
For you,
giving her information.
As you know, I watched from the public. I saw you reporting on it. I learned about this crime with the public. And it wasn't until the arrest in 2022 that I jumped on it as a podcaster and started reporting on what I was seeing. I have so many questions for you. I feel like you need to write a sequel to the book post the trial. By the way, I hope you do.
Well, once I was able to write the book or knew that I was going to write the book, I thought, oh my gosh, do I know how to write a book? And it was harder than anything I've ever done because it's not what I was used to. It's really kind of you. And it's clearly a story that I knew the people. So I wanted it to be exactly right. And going through my notes and having this stack and feeling overwhelmed. And
it's an awful book.
I felt like Tom Hanks talking to a volleyball in my room. I stayed in my room for 5 months every single day. My son was like, please don't write another book. But
I've heard that about writing a book. You just, you hunker down and you don't talk and you don't eat and you just.
And it's on my end, I was the type of person in college.
I bet $5 Lauren Matthias writes a book after this. I bet she goes quiet for like 2 months or 3 months, maybe 6 months at the most, and then writes a book.
I'd cram, and even high school the night before. So I squeezed in what should have been writing each day into like 5 months and just wrote. But I knew the story, and I remember sending Becky a chapter and saying, what do you think of this? And what do you think of, because I wanted them to know. I asked Becky what she thought of it, and I wanted them to know that this is the perspective I'd be taking from their point of view, not from any other point of view. And really I did talk about the investigation.
Including the point of view of the truth. That's the most important. Fuck the truth. Let's just do it from the family's point of view.
Too, but it was never my intent or who I am as a person, period, to try to investigate this murder, these murders, the horrific murders. But it wasn't.
It wasn't her intent. She just wanted to take anything she was given by the police and just, and that's just the truth, and not to investigate anything. No thinking happening. My
thing to do. There are people out there that Deanna Thompson, I was lucky enough to interview for part of the book. She's in Don't F with Cats, that Netflix show, and she has the investigative skill that I just didn't want the perspective to be from that angle, because that's not what I did or do.
It's a wonderful book, and you really did put the family angle in. I recommend it to anyone. You know, and I find it interesting as a journalist. You really delved into this case, as you say. This sort of became your human interest case. In other words, you would go from crime to crime. As you say, it never gets easier. You just put your game face on. We do what we do. And this one really grabbed you, and you could not let this go. You sort of explained why. You went to dinner, you met the Patties, you met the families. Tell me about, you know, what we just concluded this trial. What was it like seeing this through, a sort of your story, and being there, knowing the families, being so involved, having written a book, watching this trial play out? Because I have to say this, as I pointed out, I came on this later, right, than you. This was a trial unlike any trial I've ever reported on.
Me too.
What are your thoughts seeing this through?
Well, we're great. I know you are too. It just comes with the job of compartmentalizing. You have to. So you could cover certain stories, and that's what you're able to do. But with this, and
There's the tattoo shop, Black Flag. It was called like Odin something.
I mentioned this in the book, is that for the first time I felt like I was on their side of the camera and not my side, because you're protected by that. And you move on and you move on and you move on and you move on. It doesn't mean you're not empathetic. It just means that it's the next news cycle.
It's your job. You do what you do.
Exactly. And I've even gotten criticized for this a lot, for being on that side. But I thought, well, it's a perspective I'm taking. And, you know, I sound like
they
I'm
needed
nonchalant now, but like sometimes it does bother me, or it did.
I imagine.
And I always go back to like, all right, it's not about you. It's never about me. It's about these families. And
yeah, she has to just keep reminding herself of that, because she likes it to be all about her.
I just was sensitive to it. And you know what? The bottom line is I just cared. They invited me in, and I cared. I cared what happened to them. I cared about the horrific day to day that they would have to go through without the girls. And I think it was being in
And she just wanted to get justice for them at any cost, including a man's life.
their homes. And I was at Abby's home as well, with her grandmother Diane showing me photo albums and seeing Abby's sneakers and her cat Bongo, her black cat, and her swing set. It's like they were just there. So that's what was so heart-wrenching. And if you don't, so it's easy to hide behind a computer and say, and implicate family members, which is gross, but to do that when you don't know them. And
Yeah. But you knowing them and not, that's the problem. You're not objective, and your opinion on this really doesn't matter because you're not objective.
and then they're almost not human to you. And you could, I don't say easy, and I'm not saying everybody does this. All you need is a select few, and but that's hurtful. And so I guess it was me becoming close to them and getting to know them on a different level. But I do remember what Paul Holes told me. This was CrimeCon in Las Vegas, and this is before anyone was arrested. I believe it was 2021. It was September, I believe. No, that was Orlando. So this is Las Vegas. And on
This
stage,
was Las Vegas. I was there too. I think it was 20.
Oh, you
Was
were?
it 2021? Yeah, Orlando was after, right?
Yep.
So
I wish I could have met you
think
then.
It was. Yes.
Yeah. And Paul Holes did say, first of all, he's a wonderful person, and his level of being able to detect
It's probably more likely to be somebody in the family than not.
things and see things that we don't is unprecedented, clearly. But he is modest. And I remember him saying, Susan, are you sure they don't mind if I'm on stage with you? And I'm thinking, because they did invite me to speak with them, to be the host of the panel. And I said, let me check with Mike. I said, Mike, what do you think about Paul Holes being on stage? And, you know, he's not that slick kind of a guy that maybe people think he is. He's really modest and kind. And the reason I asked that way is because I didn't want the families, because it's their dialogue and it's whatever they want to say to help get the word out there. And he said,
Paul Holes is actually a good guy with a good heart, and I don't think he would ever do anything like the people at Delphi did.
and Mike is funny. He said,
He probably didn't even want to be associated with them motherfuckers.
I'll think about it. He said, yeah, you can have him on. And just, I think he added so much, and of course told the family what he thought. And I saw Mike really kind of zoning in on Paul.
Yeah, this too fucking wacky. Wacky.
Holes. But he did say this.
You want to talk about a circle jerk?
Once someone is arrested, it just doesn't go away. It's not because they were looking for someone for so
Oh, it doesn't. Paul Ho said it doesn't go away, just like Richard Allen said. But whenever Richard Allen said it, he was the killer.
long, handing out flyers. They worked tirelessly. But he said that it'd be a new mourning period, a different sense of mourning. And you would look at this person, whoever it was, person or persons at that time, and say, is that the last person they saw? And it's a different type of emotional roller coaster. And I saw that once someone was arrested, Richard Allen, it looked like someone took the wind out of Becky's sails. She looked depleted, and she's always a go-getter, go, 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 go.
Yeah.
And each family, for those who
Maybe she knew. Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen somebody more obviously be innocent either. I never, ever, ever. Where 80%, 90% of the coverage was saying one thing, one way. And then there's only this 15% or, so 10 or 20% that have this other idea. And they're the special ones getting all the information from inside the case, getting all the leaks and everything else.
don't know the story as well as we do, the families were very different. Abby
And there's like no proof, like fucking no proof, besides feelings.
Abby's family is more kind of reserved. And
I know I'm preaching to the choir.
when Mike did his first press conference before I met the families, this was March, I believe, 7th, right after it happened, 2017. And he said, please don't contact Abby's family. You can go through me. And he thanked the media, and he read a letter from the family
Why the fuck is this guy the gatekeeper?
on their behalf. And that's when he kind of knew, okay, Mike's at the head of this right now, and Abby's family is handling this different because, of course, every family is
I still think he looks more like Brigard than anybody else.
different.
Maybe Tobe.
Every family is different, right?
And I think that's true about the trial. I think now it's a different period of mourning for them, that he was found guilty. I know the sentencing is December 20th, but so he was found guilty. Now what? The girls still aren't in their homes. The laughter's gone. The moment's gone. They will forever. I remember interviewing Kim Goldman's father, and he said, Susan, forever Ron Goldman will be that age, 25 to me, and never grow old. And that's true. There were milestones with Libby's friends, and they got to decorate their own parking space in high school. And she never got to do that. And now that Kelsey's a mom to a little girl who's so cute, and she's pregnant again with a girl, she won't be able to have those experiences and meet Kelsey's daughter. So every milestone, it's always this hole in their heart. So I think that probably is what they're going through now.
If I were them,
Yeah, that is something else. They make this family seem so wholesome, and they act like there's no reason to suspect anybody in that family at all. And they also act like Abby's family doesn't exist.
I don't know how they handled what they did during the trial. Watching them from far, there's a gag order. There's conspiracy theories. There's lies. There's people accusing family members of things still, years later, 7 years later. I felt the angst, I feel like if I had been them, I would have screamed and been so upset. I just want to thank you again. I think in this situation, because of that, they really did rely on trusted reporters and people like you. Did you sense that, or
I did, and
you can share about that?
I did. I feel like Becky speaking, especially, I know that CrimeCon, if you're not familiar with what that is, and Lauren, maybe you've discussed it, but it's where victims' families and can come together and either get the word of the case out there, or it's just people, the audience members are people who love true crime or want to help or just are really engaged. And I know for those who don't know, it sounds weird, CrimeCon, but you don't dress up. It's not like Comic-Con, but I found it to be, before my first year there.
You don't dress up? What would you dress up like? What?
It was New Orleans, I think, 2019. was my first year with the families, and I didn't know what to expect, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do public speaking. I was so nervous, but the crowd is so warm and welcoming. It's unlike anything I've ever experienced. It's a wonderful crowd, and that
And this group, they fucking ruined it.
is where I know
They got their fucking grimy little claws in it and just ruined it for everybody. Because now it's like a fucking cool girls club.
Kevin Balfwell, and he's one of the guys who first started
A bootlickers club.
this, put this on with the Red Seat Ventures. And I do believe that Kelsey found solace there, was able to connect. That to me is what I found the most of. You're able to connect with people who really know how you feel, really can say, my sister was murdered too. Where else can you find that? So I think, and Becky has said to me, that really helped Kelsey to be able to, okay, now I'm an advocate. I have purpose. She didn't die in vain. These girls did not die in vain. So I believe that Becky found that to be healing as well. And I know that during that particular crime con, Diane was there too, Abby's grandmother, on stage, and talking about.
I have heard that CrimeCon used to be like informative and like learning experience and stuff like that. But ever since this red seat or whatever took over that she was talking about, it went downhill, and they started like charging crazy prices and only inviting the elite and all kinds of crazy shit.
She said, look, I can't change something. What happened? I'll never be able to bring Abby back. She said, my heart's broken for my daughter. That was her only daughter. Abby's mom she was talking of. So it was just kind of the stages and the heartbreak that they go through, and all the missed timeline, everything on the timeline, all the missed kind of milestones that they go through. So I think that she found that.
I think they started like doing some kind of victim worship kind of thing. I don't know. And you know, another weird thing is that I've never been able to figure out is the interview room. They were always a Richard Allen is innocent of that crowd. And then something happened around the time CrimeCon started, and they didn't end up getting invited to CrimeCon. And then he was doing another live, I think it was like about Maddie Soto or something like that, and he just briefly had mentioned Delphi, and he was like, yeah, I got way too much pushback for that, and we're not allowed to talk about that anymore on our channel. So I'm just like, I wonder what the hell happened with that. I don't know if anybody out there knows, but if you do, let me know, because I'm interested. Because I always thought, like, even though they are kind of like, and I've heard like some bad shit about Chris McDonough and all that, like that he made somebody confess to a crime they didn't commit and all that. But I do think it's interesting. Who are they getting pushback from about? And they were kind of like butthurt about not getting invited to CrimeCon. So it was like before. This was like maybe 6 months ago, and yeah, I'm just interested in the backstory behind that. I wonder if she had something to do with it.
And
Either one of these guys or any of the other people behind the scenes of CrimeCon.
by no means am I the only.
Or maybe they didn't get invited because Holman and McClellan were getting an award, and they were yeah, I wonder who was doing pushback too, because they're a pretty big channel, and they were one of the outspoken ones about it, and he had like a good background and all that, and I did keep up with them for a while, but then I fell off, but because he's very, very long-winded. He does long episodes, but I wonder what the behind the scenes of that situation is.
Only journalists that the families have spoken to, and I know throughout this before the gag order.
Yes.
Rafael Sanchez comes to mind, that trusted, he's local Indiana, and we got to see them at the trial. So there were people that they trusted. And
Wait, I missed something.
What happened? I'll never be able to bring Abby back. She said, my heart's broken for my daughter. That was her only daughter. Abby's mom she was talking of. So it was just kind of the stages and the heartbreak that they go through and all the missed timeline, everything on the timeline, all the missed kind of milestones that they go through. So I think that she found that healing. And by no means am I the only journalist that the families have spoken to. And I know throughout this, before the gag order,
Yes.
Rafael Sanchez comes to mind, a trusted, he's local Indiana. And we got
Who the fuck is Rafael Sanchez?
to see them at the trial. So there were people that they trusted, and Becky's a very forgiving person, and a kind person. I can't stress that enough. And so is Mike, and so is Diane. But she's open to say, she'll come up to you and say, "Hey, how are you?" She'll remember everyone's name, and so I think that she felt that was kind of healing for her throughout. And I think once the gag order's lifted, maybe she won't, but maybe she would like to. There is no such thing as closure. I've learned that throughout, but I'm sure that she'll speak again and talk about her experience.
Yeah, they were so brave in the courtroom too. They were there to witness everything. They were so strong to even some of those hardest photos to look at. And I would look over and they were there just being so strong, bearing witness to their granddaughter, their sister. I am so impressed by this family and what they have been warriors for these girls.
Were you there when Cicero was on the stand?
Yes. Yes, I was there, taking us through.
When Cicero was on the stand, the blood expert, is it Major Patrick Cicero? And that was the day, because getting into court was a whole other situation that everyone had to go through. And that's how I feel like I know Lauren so much more so than I would if we could just walk into court.
I know.
I'm grateful
we got to
for
know
that.
each other.
If
I
we
would
could
say
just
the line. We all bonded.
I mean, if we could just
Yeah, they all bonded by these two fucking probably being mean girls and stepping on everybody's toes.
walk in, that's a whole, topic within itself.
Yes.
But that was the day I had a media badge. You're like the chosen one, but it would rotate. And then it was out of the media pool. But that was the day that I took notes. And so you're in the front row, and that's the day that I'm the pool reporter. So I knew that everyone would be looking at my notes. Now, I wasn't used to writing for hours and hours and getting every quote. And I had highlighters, and I'm trying to do my best. And it was Cicero. So you're paying attention to every single word. And I had seen him on
He's a blood splatter expert, right?
the stand at a hearing at the end of July, beginning of August. And I knew that it was heart-wrenching to hear him. It truly was. He was on the stand, and they're showing images. And I had yet to see the crime scene photos at this particular point. Maybe they showed one in court. I'm not sure before that, but this was up close.
Yeah.
And the technology, they weren't that savvy in the courtroom. And so it was almost like a big iPad that was shown, not a TV screen. So if you touched it, it would zoom in. And Cicero got up and he touched it, and it zoomed in, and it was Libby, like with blood on her face. And it's so horrible. And
There was an audible gasp at that moment in the courtroom.
But no matter how gruesome it is, the means does not justify the end.
I know you know this because I hear that a lot, the audible gasp. And sometimes I'm wondering, was there, or is that just in writing? There was, when he talked about the blood across Libby's face. And I'm sorry to be graphic,
The teardrops.
but it was up, you would see. And then he talked about kind of how that could occur. And he believed she was dragged by one arm a couple of yards. And he was talking about like a mark on her face. And he said, without the presence of water, I took down the quote, that would coincide with what would be a tear. He was basically saying it was a tear. And that was the gasp, Lauren. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was so like, it really was. Oh my gosh, because I remember Becky saying to me,
That does not make him any more guilty.
I hope she didn't suffer. Well, a tear says she knows what was going on. She knows. So that was like,
These people are just, it's just so bad. They just want to be a victim so bad and live in that feeling of shock. And it's like, they're the murder porn.
Oh my gosh. I'll never forget
Oh my gosh.
that day. And not that I wouldn't have paid attention where I was sitting. I probably wouldn't have seen as much, but it was just, I'll never forget that moment ever. And I can't imagine being the families.
She's just trying to be super dramatic. Ali says Cicero was a blood spider guy. He said Nick brought him in just to offer a counter to the defense F-tree theory, which was actually Ferentz's theory. The to-your tail was insane. Yeah, it's like they want to make this crime the most salacious, the most sad, the most. They want to get this. They want to get the guy that did this at all cost. And that includes his rights and his freedom and the truth.
Seeing that.
Right. And that front row, to explain to everyone, when you're the pool reporter taking notes, again, usually being a pool reporter means you get to have audio or a video and then you just hand it over. You're in charge of actually handwritten.
And also, Lauren didn't want to share her notes because she wanted to be fucking special.
Notes. You are sitting on the front row where you can hear the best.
Yeah, they're the stars. It's all about them. Everything's about them.
Row back is harder to hear. I express that to our listeners multiple times. You can't hear. So you're that day. In other words, you're there. You're front and center. You're hearing and seeing everything.
Everything's elevated, right? Which I've covered a lot of court cases. I've never been in a courtroom that long for the whole entire trial. Even if it was for CNN or HLN, I'd go in for a couple of days, come back.
The news cycle. You've got to get everything done. Yeah,
exactly.
Oh yeah, they're journalists. They know exactly. They've been on TV. They're more professional than any other YouTubers.
And when it was Casey Anthony, let's say it was Mike Alanos, who I worked with, he was there, or Sandusky, he was in the courtroom. So for me to be there every single day, and court cases, they have ebbs and flows, and a day could be, for lack of a better word, boring if you're talking about DNA or lack thereof, and the scientific aspects and the bullet and the markings on an unspent bullet. So, but this day everything was elevated, and I didn't realize in a courtroom, and maybe it was because it was Carroll County, I'm not sure, but the acoustics, you couldn't hear anything in the back, especially. Right. I think that Judge Gold changed that a little bit, and McClellan would always stand up and say, you have to project your voice. And I remember it was, there was someone on the stand that finally spoke really close to the mic. I'm like, that, because it can be an issue if you're trying to hear and listen.
And then Judge Gold told her, you don't need to do that. Just scoot that mic back. You don't need to talk into that mic.
To everything. But that day was elevated for me and so horrific.
Have we tried getting the courtroom audio yet through FOIA?
Yeah. No, thank you for sharing that and explaining how that happened. And yes, we got to know.
Especially since that them keeping those exhibits were in the appeal. Like, maybe we could actually get that. I don't know if anybody's tried that yet.
Know each other through the line. You're right. Had you been able to get it in access every day?
And you might have mentioned this, but so you lined up and everyone had to get in, and it was, and I would never want to talk about it inside because I felt like we were complaining, and we weren't allowed to talk, but if we could at a moment where Judge Gold wouldn't be mad at us, I didn't want to seem like I was complaining, because once you get in, you're like, okay, you can exhale, and you're like, this is a double murder trial of two young girls. You never forgot that, but you didn't want to complain about anything. No. Well, slowly but surely word got out, and this just tells you who they are, to the families, and they brought food in the middle of the night, pizza,
oh, this is where the poison donuts.
You name it. Becky was telling me that. Tara, Libby's aunt, would swing by food. I mean, they cared about us. And some people on that line weren't that nice to the families, but they brought pizza anyway. So that just
right. Exactly. A lot of people there were not nice to the family, and they were still bringing food to us at 4 a.m. and at 5 a.m. in the morning.
Thank you, Allies.
Just shows you who they are. And once you got in, and I know, Lauren, you know this, and then so there'd be a morning break, and then there was a lunch break. You had to go back down and line up again. At times,
I might put in another one for that. I've got a couple in for HR records of certain police officers I'm still waiting to hear on. I've been following up on diligently.
Sometimes I felt like I was at Rikers, and you don't want to make a false move or you're in trouble. I would joke,
Right, right. And then if
Lord
you
of
think
the
you're
Fly.
safe, there was one day, I don't know if you were there that day, there was one day I thought I was safe. I had hit every goalpost.
Yep.
I had been there since it was pitch black outside. I had line sitters. We were up, there's this line, there's a line outside, and there's a line getting in. Then there's a line.
I can only imagine the fucking the people she stepped on to get access to this trial. I bet there are horror stories.
Line at the top of the stairs, and then once you're there and they count you, you're like good to go, right? And I was in that line, and all of a sudden I was like, I have to go to the bathroom right now. I actually didn't feel well, so I was nauseous. I was like,
I was there.
You were there. So that's what people don't realize either, is I had already like used the restroom I was like, oh my gosh, I mean TMI, but like I was like, I'm gonna throw up right now, like, and I just like ran to the restroom, and I came back out, right, and he was like, back a line, and I was like, but
This deputy,
back a line.
That's what happens whenever you treat people like shit.
99% of them were nice, right?
But and he was nice too. I was like, I understand.
Well,
I respected
not
him.
really. He was not nice. And I remember, okay, so that day, this guy was mean, and he was angry at something, and you just ran up, but he acted like you just ran up from outside and didn't spend the whole night outside. And he's like, no.
That's the whole
Oh, now she's the fucking victim.
night there.
I know, I do want to hear
I
from
was
them
like,
too.
but
I'm thinking, oh no, God, no, 'cause she's been on this line. So we get in, you finally got in that day, right?
I did. I was the last one in. Yeah.
Did he say sorry or anything?
I have a bad
Not
habit
you,
of like
him.
wanting to explain myself, and so
Right,
I was
me
like, no,
too.
I was here, and he didn't want to hear it, right? He didn't want to hear it, but I was like, but you don't understand. Back a line. So after everybody went in, I stopped my bad habit, and
Yeah.
I was just like, I understand, I respect you, and he softened a bit, and he's like, okay, you've got one spot in there, and
A lot of these deputies work in the prisons, in the jail. So it would be like if we were prisoners talking back. They don't want to hear it. They just
they don't
don't
want to hear the excuse. They don't want to hear the excuse.
And they
Yeah.
don't care. Everything
They
we've
don't
just
care.
been venting about, then they don't care.
don't
And
Besides her boyfriend Holman.
They
Judge
want order.
Earl doesn't care, and I understand it. She's been burned, but this was excessive. So she was on the stand one day, and she said, I understand. And the jury, she was very kind to the jurors, of course, and they were out of the room. And she's like, I hear that people can't hear. Essentially, I'm paraphrasing. I don't care. I only care about the jury and the pool reporters. I don't care about anyone else, clearly, because they kept moving the goalpost. So we'd line up, and then we'd line up again, and then you'd line up again. And there was one day, Kevin and Anya from Murder She were outside. It was just a cutoff, and I saw Anya's face. And I got to know Kevin and Anya at the hearing in July, and then at the jury selection in Fort
Great
Wayne.
podcast. Murder Sheets podcast.
Wonderful. So I feel like they're my best friends, because once you've gone through all of that, and I've been waiting in line with them, so
Yeah, they're best friends. Yeah. Okay.
I just come out. It was not the same day with you, but it was the same guy. And I said, excuse me, there's 2 more seats in there. And he goes, okay. He goes, worry about your own seat. And I just scurried in. I'm like, okay. Like,
No, you're like, I know. Do I push? Do I do this? Do I not? Is it a
I
good
saw
day?
Anya's
Is it a bad
face.
day?
I saw Anya's face. If this was after what happened to you, I wouldn't have made a false move, but I didn't know yet. So I'm like, oh, excuse me. This guy's massive. And he's like, worry about your own seat. I'm like,
You're like,
They
yes,
got it.
sir. Yeah,
So-
got it. And there was one.
What the fuck are they trying to hide? These fucking prison guards are there? What? Why are the prison guards at the trial? That's what I want to know. Why are the prison guards at the trial?
Day where Anya actually didn't get in, and sometimes Anya and Kevin would say, I'll go in and you stay out, but there's one moment which also shows how people really came together. And Anya didn't make it in. I don't think either of them were in, and someone stood up. It was Anthony, and he stood up and he's like, you can have my seat.
Anthony? Who's Anthony? Anthony Greeno?
You're a better reporter than I am. And he
That
got
was-
up and left.
so nice of Greeno. And he let me his phone one day. But that was right. People started, you were sticking together on that line.
What the fuck? Ew. Ew, David, ew.
Most
Yeah.
everyone, because you're all going through the same thing to get in there. So needless to say, it'll be interesting to see what happens at the sentence hearing. But It was, how many days was the trial? Was it 19? It depended on if you consider jury selection, but it was day in and day out. And on your topic, what you first mentioned was the families were there for everything. 63 plus pieces of evidence, witnesses on the stand.
Not them platforming Anthony Greeno, who made that weird AI video of Ange.
And like
Throw in that Kelsey's pregnant.
What a piece of shit. What all these people are pieces of shit.
Too. Oh, there goes my pillow. But yeah.
Every day. The only time she wasn't was when her daughter was sick. But it's
like, I don't know much about that guy. That's almost the only thing I know about him, but he's a fucking piece of shit.
It was every day to see this and hear this, but they promised they'd be there, and they were. And granted, this is a very small courtroom, a beautiful courtroom, very small.
Tall. I know people get confused. And one, big in some ways, tall, big, bad acoustics. But like,
tall, beautiful. But the seats were limited. And so Becky was concerned there wouldn't even be enough seats for her family members to come. So, they went through a lot.
Susan, I want to ask, I don't want to take up too much of your time. We're so grateful that you're here, and we know how busy you are.
Yeah, she's just so fucking busy sucking fucking pig dick.
I think one of the big things that as a podcaster and YouTuber and someone reporting at the trial was I was just so surprised at varying views and opinions, as we're all hearing that are fair. But can I ask you where you are and how you feel about this verdict?
Yeah,
I saw you on Tom Webster's show too, so I know you're talking about it.
And I know, me on Tom Webster's show. I interrupted too many people. I was at my wit's end. We could leave that out, but I was like, F this. Okay.
We were all on our wit's end at some point, so that's fair to say. You can talk.
What is she talking about? Maybe I have to go check out that show.
I was like, fuck this. I'm like, there's fucking QAnon crime people out there. Because it's Tom's show, I was like, I'm saying whatever I want.
What?
Becky was concerned there wouldn't even be enough seats for her family members to come. So, they went through a lot.
Yeah.
Susan, I want to ask, I don't want to take up too much of your time. We're so grateful that you're here, and we know how busy you are. I think one of the big things that as a podcaster and YouTuber and someone reporting at the trial was I was just so surprised at varying views and opinions as
she was surprised that not everybody just thinks the state is, on the up and up all the time, and that there could possibly be any other idea besides just that, Richard Allen's guilty.
We're all hearing that are fair, but can I ask you where
fair?
You are and how you feel about this verdict?
Yeah.
I saw you on Tom Webster's show too, so I know you're talking about it.
And I know, me on Tom Webster's show. I interrupted too many people. I was at my wit's end. We could leave that out, but I was like, F this. Okay.
We were all on our wit's end at some point, so that's fair to say. You can talk about that.
I was like, fuck this. I'm like, there's fucking QAnon crime people out there.
QAnon crime people? What is she talking about?
Because it's Tom's show, I was like, I'm saying whatever I want. But I'm like, we're not tiptoeing around this anymore. I was losing it like Jack Nicholson in my room. But
I lost it a few times. There were tears. Yeah. That's what I wanted to have you on. I'm like, come talk about what we just went through.
And real quick, before I answer, my husband was in here setting up, and I'm so glad you said, like, I've never experienced something like that, because I saw his face, because I've been telling him, like, you have no idea. And to hear it from you, like, you just have no idea. So, all right.
And I've sat through full murder trials before, and they're all hard. They're all hard. There was just this unique aspect.
People dared to question
this shit up if you try. It was so fucking nuts. I think I do have PTSD. All right.
I know. That's what I'm trying to tell people. So I'm glad I can validate you and your husband heard, because it's really.
I'm glad I can validate you and your husband.
It's hard to explain to people.
I laid in bed for 2 days and I felt like I've been beat up. I never felt that before. And I've done.
Maybe it's because your fucking conscience.
Morning shows my whole career, and I was like, I can't move. And I didn't lift a weight, not do one exercise in 30 days. So it was crazy. All right, I'll answer that question. Okay. So my belief is they do have the right guy. Do I feel like there were mistakes made within the investigation? Yes. Do I feel like that everyone did the best they could with the resources they had and the knowledge they had? Yes. I believe that Richard Allen was the biggest piece of evidence, his word. I believe Richard Allen. And if you believe Richard Allen and he says he
You believe Richard Allen whenever he was being tortured by fucking Odinist prison guards under duress.
Was there at that particular time, soon after the murders.
Richard Allen never said, well, I guess he did say he killed him, but never in his fucking right mind did say that.
I believe it was 2 days later.
I know, I'm about to fucking lose it on these fucking dumb broads.
He came forward to Dan Doolin in that grocery store parking lot and said, I was there. I was there. Then again in 2022.
So he's being a fucking good citizen and admitting that he was there. And he probably wasn't even there at the time that it happened.
During the interviews, I thought that was a huge day when Liggett was talking to him and the investigator, Steve Mullen. And he said, I was there. What were you wearing? And he said the same outfit. So I believe, or something similar. And I know everyone in Indiana has that kind of uniform, if you.
He said, I was wearing the same outfit. Yeah, they believe Richard Allen, but not the other people that confess. They don't believe Keegan Kline. They don't believe fucking Elvis Fields, any of it.
But I believe that he was the evidence that they needed to convict. Was surprised, that there was no DNA? Yes, but I don't think that I'm not an expert by any means, not even close, of when DNA is
there was DNA. It just didn't point to Richard Allen.
There when it's not. Was the person wearing gloves? But I do believe that
was the person wearing gloves. The fucking girls were naked and their fucking clothes were switched around. And what the fuck was he wearing gloves? What about the hair wrapped around her finger?
I thought it was I saw it from jury selection. That was the first time I witnessed jury selection. I'm so glad I did. I learned so much.
The person wear gloves?
I'm so grateful that they were sequestered because of all the information surrounding this.
Sequestered and guarded by Odinist guards.
And I'm so grateful they were from that county and not from Delphi. People are just, as you would understand it, too close. But for those who think that Richard Allen didn't get a fair trial, I believe that he did. And I believe it may have been, I believe it was a disservice to not have at least the audio out there so everyone can make judgments on them on their own and hear all of the confessions. Do I believe that he should have been?
Yeah, they put those words in his mouth. He never said he was wearing that.
In that prison? Absolutely not.
He said I could have been wearing a fucking skull cap. He said he could have been wearing a black or blue car. Well, he said he could have been wearing a hoodie. He said he could have been wearing lots of things.
I think the defense had something.
They suggested those things to him, and they're fucking horrible interviewers.
To argue there, and I think they argued it. They did a good job. I truly believe that. But do I feel like it was beyond a reasonable doubt that Richard Allen killed Abby and Libby? 100% yes.
Thank you for sharing that. I agree. You shouldn't have been there, but it doesn't change the evidence, and mistakes were made, and it doesn't change.
Yeah, what they were wearing 5 years ago, what time they went to a fucking bridge, who they called, and everything else.
Change the evidence. I see it the way you
They probably got so much fucking Botox in their fucking forehead they can't form a thought.
see it. I trust this jury. They deliberated. They listened. They took notes.
The questions were amazing.
The questions, I know.
You knew that they not only were they listening, but some of their questions, I'm like, these people are highly intelligent.
They were about, I was like, wait, what?
I don't even know what they asked. And
I'm just like thinking of lunch, and you guys are like, what did you just get?
And you could kind of sense, like, based on their particular jobs, kind of what they knew. And I forgot as we went along kind of what each person did for a living or their expertise, but you could clearly sense that they knew what they were talking about with these questions and with the DNA and the ballistics and just the questions. I really thought that gave us a look inside of how they were thinking throughout the trial. And I think that all states should adopt that because
he said he was probably wearing jeans and tennis shoes and a sweatshirt like he had on in the interview, but they asked him what else he could have been wearing. And he listed every single option. Literally everything he had in his closet.
Imagine if you and
he was trying to be fucking helpful.
I, Lauren, were on a jury, and then we had to go back and deliberate after 375 pieces of evidence and 62 witnesses. I think, oh my gosh, what are my questions? So to be able to ask throughout and get those answers, I think were helpful in the deliberation time. But I will say, nothing is a slam dunk. I had no idea what the outcome would be. And people can guess. We did that with Jodi Arias, Casey Anthony, Scott Peterson. Oh, is it too soon? They're out this long. That means it's go, they're locked, it's going to be a mistrial, but you never really know. So I had no idea when it went into Monday, but it just showed you how much time they took, and how they each had a folder with all of their notes in there. And it shows, I'm curious to see what the breakdown was or what they all thought. Maybe one day we'll hear that, but it was interesting to see the whole process. And I believe they came to the right conclusion.
You know, I want to say I agree with you that I believe that if there had been audio or something from the courtroom, it would have helped. I think that was part of why this trial was so hard, was it felt there was a sort of heaviness of like, we have to relay this information, and what everybody's hearing and what they're relaying is, it was broad and it was confusing. And I agree that it was a disservice to the public. I think this is one.
It was broad and it was confusing.
They each
Who's they, Lauren?
had a folder with all of their notes in there. And it shows, I'm curious to see what the breakdown was or what they all thought. Maybe one day we'll hear that, but it was interesting to see the whole process. And I believe they came to the right conclusion.
You know, I want to say I agree with you that I believe that if there had been audio or something from the courtroom, it would have helped. I think that was part of why this trial was so hard, was it felt there was a sort of heaviness of like, we have to relay this information, and what everybody's hearing and what they're relaying is, it was broad and it was confusing. And I agree that it was a disservice to the public. I think this is one reason that as journalists, we believe in transparency. I understand why Judge Gould, made her choices, and I respect her decisions. But again, I think that had people been able to listen for themselves, I agree with you. I think it would have helped the entire process. I want to ask you really quickly about jury selection, because I was not there at jury selection, and there are a lot of questions about these jurors. How well did they know about this case? Can you give us, I mean, I know you don't remember each one maybe individually, but overall, your feeling about this jury.
Yeah. Well, my father's an attorney, and I said, I'm going to jury selection. And he said, why? It's kind of a mundane process to go. And he didn't realize I had never seen it, or maybe he just thought it's not that important in terms of the process. I think as he's seen it so often, clearly.
No, he probably just knows you're a fucking dumbass.
But because HLN, of course, at CNN, you didn't show that. You don't want to show the juror. So it was interesting for me. But
yeah.
They did the question that was asked, and it was by Judge Gould. How many of you have heard about this case? And at first I saw them hesitant, and then a lot of them raised their hand in the group that was brought up. So that there was a whole section that was brought up. They sat down kind of where we were sitting, but this was Allen County, a much bigger courtroom. And then they would be called up, I believe, maybe 12 at a time, and then they were asked questions. And then McClelland would go up and ask questions, and then Rosie or Baldwin would ask questions, and then they'd go back to their desks and kind of write out notes of like who scratching out. And Richard Allen was involved, like no, yes, no. We didn't know why they picked a particular person, but then
why did you say that?
Group that was brought up. So that there was a whole section that was brought up. They sat down.
Why did you say Richard Allen is involved?
Down, kind of where we were sitting, but this was Allen County, a much bigger courtroom. And then they would be called up, I believe, maybe 12 at a time, and then they were asked questions. And then McClelland would go up and ask questions, and then Rosie or Baldwin would ask questions, and then they'd go back to their desks and kind of write out notes of like who scratching out. And Richard Allen was involved, like no, yes, no. We didn't know why they picked a particular person, but then after that, Judge Gould would say, juror number 2, you're excused. Juror number 16, you're excused. So they would kind of leave the room, and then the next group was brought up. But a lot of people had heard about the case. Another question was,
still don't know why she said that.
How many of you are law enforcement or have relatives who are? A lot of people raised their hand. And it was, okay, you've heard about the case. And then Judge Gould would say, juror number 2, how much, tell us about that. Well, I heard about it just in passing at the dinner table, but does that mean you can make a fair decision? Will that impact how you decide or what you think of this case? Can you be fair and impartial? And this person said, I can be. And so that would not get them excused, because it's still Indiana. I mean, people heard about it around the country.
This case.
Yeah. And so that was interesting for me. This one woman, and Judge Gould said, look, we want you to be truthful. And McClelland was the first one up. He said, I don't care. I want you to tell me the truth so I can make the best decisions for this case for Richard Allen. But Judge Gull would say, another step was they'd read off their witness list. And do you know any of these people? Yes or no. If you do, raise your hand if you don't. And this woman was in the front row, and back to had she heard about the case, she said, I have heard about it. Well, how? Well, I started a Facebook group and I already made my decision of guilt or innocence. You do? Yes. Well, would that change? No. So she was excused. And
What?
someone said,
She made a Facebook group?
raised his hand. Is there any issue, Judge Gall said, of why you couldn't serve on this jury? And one guy raised his hand and he said, I was unemployed for so long, I finally got a job and I'd be worried about it. Is that where your mind would be? Would you be listening to the case or would you be worried? He said worried. He was excused. There was one guy, I haven't seen this. I haven't seen any jury selection before, but it was, raise your hand, sir. He said, yes. He said, I'm a psychic. I could really be used as a witness for the prosecution, but I'm a psychic. And okay, so then we're on break and I walk out and he's excused and he walks next to me. He said, I can hear Richard Allen's heartbeat in there. I said, oh, and ran to the bathroom. So
you talked to
What the fuck?
him even. I had heard of that story. That's interesting.
And then one more, there was a guy in his 30s in front row, kind of leaning back. And I'm like, oh my God, can he just be respectful? And he was answering so in a rude manner, but kind of funny. And then he just, is there any reason you can't? And he raised his hand saying, please don't put me on this case. I don't want to be on this, please. And it did get a laughter in court. And she said, I don't want to do it. And she said, well, then we don't want you to do it because they don't want someone on there. And there were, of course, women and men with
That's who should have been on there.
kids, little kids. So any issue you could think of, they want people who can serve and whose mind will be fully in. And I think being sequestered, although it was probably excruciating, considering we're all on our phones, they couldn't use them unless a deputy was standing by, or they could write work emails with a deputy right there. Although I'm sure it was difficult for them, I think it helped them come to the conclusion that they did and be a fair and impartial jury. But I think seeing that process was eye-opening for me in a good way.
Thank you for sharing that. No, I appreciate that. A jury that we can trust, then in other words. They did.
I don't trust them as far as I can throw them. Yeah, I question both of their sense of reality too. They live in fucking la la land.
Their due diligence. Okay.
Due diligence. Okay.
And a variety. I was surprised by, I mean, as far as diversity goes, not very diverse as far as ethnicity goes, but it's Indiana and it's one county.
Jury of your peers, right?
It's
Older,
a jury of
younger.
your peers.
And you're trying to assess, like, what are they thinking? You could never tell. The only thing I noticed with the jury is the one guy on the top row always scanning the crowd, like always looking around and taking in the surroundings and looking at how people reacted to things. And there's one thing I do want to say for those who think Richard Allen did not get a fair trial. That's what the appeals process is for. Do I think he'll get one? Not necessarily.
No, he's going to get one.
But again, there were mistakes made, but I believe they do have the right guy, and there was overwhelming amount of circumstantial evidence. But I always say, why would the family want the wrong guy in custody? That would mean that a child killer was out there.
Yeah, no shit. That's what we're saying. That's exactly what we're saying. They would want it to give them some sense of closure.
Right.
And if you think maybe, someone else was involved, back to Paul Holes, on his assessment, and his history will show you he knows what he's talking about, it's that usually men like this work alone. And if he didn't, he would have mentioned that other person, I believe, by now. It's very rare that, you can convince a guy to maybe rob a bank, but to do something like this, it's far-fetched. But again, I wouldn't want...
You have no idea what the fuck
want
you're
the wrong
talking about,
person
Susan.
in custody, of course. And if Richard Allen was innocent and I felt that, I would say that too. But I believe he is guilty.
Yeah.
Well, it's not about what you believe, Susan. It's about the fucking evidence.
Yeah, the evidence, I sat there listening with open mind, and the evidence led me to the same place. Law enforcement got a lot of flack at this trial. There were mistakes made, but as you shared in your book, and I want to bring up your book again, but in your book, you got to know these law enforcement personally. You were at that 2019 press conference with Doug Carter. Can you tell us a little bit about your thoughts on law enforcement in this case?
I just think, and speaking of Doug Carter, I think he's a class act, and there's really no one like him that I've ever met in terms of different stories. And
Yeah, he's got a lot of fucking different stories, all right.
he always took the brunt of everything. He did interview after interview after interview, and he would
And would just lick his lips the whole time like a little snake.
always say, Susan, I can't say what I think. I can only say what I know. And right now, we can't tell you everything we know for the integrity of the investigation. And again, there were mistakes made. And when someone was in custody, it was October 31st, 2022, I did a panel, and he came on, and again, very modest. He said, I by no means am taking credit for this. There are people who put off retirement. As I mentioned in the book, some of the officers had their screensaver of Abby and Libby. They put their hearts and souls into this, and seeing what they saw, and now I know what they saw with the crime.
Yeah, their judgment. I don't trust either of their judgment at all. Traumatizing her own son, making him a victim so she can make herself more of a victim.
Crime scene photos. This was very personal to them. It's a small community. And with Doug Carter, who I believe was leading this throughout, would always say, if it was something bad, take it out on me. And he said, Susan, how do you think I feel? And he wasn't feeling sorry for himself, but he did say, I have a grandfather, meaning Mike, asking me, why don't you have this guy? You know what he looks like. You know what he sounds like. Libby did her part. Do yours. At time, because he doesn't mince words. And he was saying, what is taking so long? What can I do? How can I help? And by no means were the family just
Doug Carter had me gaslighted at first, too.
following and not saying much. They were involved, and they wanted this solved just as
Yeah, her kid is 8 years old, and apparently he's got dark circles under his eyes, and he's not been eating, and he's worried about his mom all the time.
much as anyone. And upgrade.
Because of her stalker.
That Richard Allen did come forward and talk about what he wore. And I know that people say it's a small town. Even my father, who I mentioned, an attorney, would say, why can't they get the guy? He's on the bridge. He has that outfit on. And I said, well, Dad, it's very small. And I feel like everyone has that outfit, and the face was blurry. But I believe that Libby, in the closing arguments, Nick McClelland, and then the rebuttal of closing, so he has the final word, said that Libby always wanted to solve crimes. She did. She was interested in that. And he said,
yeah.
And she did her own, which was so touching.
She did it.
Oh my gosh.
I know, that moment.
This is fucking infuriating. It's like all they want to do is just put themselves, they just want to be the victim so bad, and it's just so disgusting.
That moment I will not forget. I want to bring up your book one more time, Susan. Down the Hill. It is an incredible book. If you guys want to understand this case and how it affected this town and the families and the details, this is the book. And I just want to thank you for writing it and for caring about this case. And I think there's a moment in a journalist's life where a story becomes bigger and it becomes a human interest story more. So you realize, and you have to delve in, and you have to do your part when you see something that needs a little bit more attention. And you certainly did that when you told this story. And for that, I thank you. You've taught me a lot. Again, like I always say, I jumped in and I looked to people like you, as I say, the experts, to help me understand. John and I did all the research we possibly could, listened to all the podcasts, talked to as many people as we could before, but we weren't there, in 2019. We weren't there in 2017. And so I just want to thank you for caring about.
Yep, they just want it to be over with. You can say that again. I'm going to watch these couple TikToks, and then I'm going to see about Susan Hendricks and Susan Hendricks' interview with what's-his-face.
What would I say to those that know they spread knew they spread misinformation?
Yes.
Shameful. Just absolutely shameful.
Go look in the fucking mirror, dumbass.
The totality of this, and the number of lives that this case touched, to do what they knew was wrong. That's what we teach our kids not to do. That's what we teach them not to do. So we had an opportunity there to.
Look at that swallow.
to maybe do the right thing and they did the wrong thing. Now maybe that's an altruistic approach to life, but I feel pretty strongly about that. And
You had the opportunity to do the right thing, Doug Carter, and you did the wrong thing. You chose to just fucking to believe whatever was served to you with no fucking evidence, and to play into their game, and to play into their fucking act.
they know what
I know you fucking don't believe
they
this.
did was wrong.
Did Richard Allen's defense have to do with that misinformation?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely they did. Yeah, read the dossier.
We read it.
That's unconscionable what they did. It's unconscionable what they wrote.
I'll get back and do that.
And I would say it to Baldwin and Rosie if they were standing here today. I don't care what they think of me. What else?
You'd say that to the attorneys. You'd say it to Rosie and to Baldwin.
100%.
First of all, I don't stereotype, so not all YouTubers or content creators or podcasters are bad.
Thank you.
I know some are more biased to the prosecution and some are more biased to the defense, and that's their opinion, and we're in America. So,
We're in America, but if we don't like it, get the fuck out.
but
right?
it is very frustrating to have your character attacked day in
I wonder why your character's been attacked, Holman.
and day out, and false information and lies
Lies.
of corruption and things like that. This is not true. And if they knew the people involved in this, they would know that we're not. I'm a lot of things, but I'm not a liar. I'm not corrupt.
Yeah, okay. I'm not a liar and I'm not corrupt.
I'm not perfect, but we definitely take it personal. But we're actually kind of used to it too. The public scrutinizes police investigations every day. Defense attorneys try to attack us all the time. So
Defense attorneys try to attack you all the time.
I hate to say we're kind of callous to it, but I think this team was very unethical and very over the top.
And by this team, you mean the defense team?
I do.
And tell me about that. So you're saying this particular, do you respect a defense? Is that true?
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody deserves a good defense, and I think some defense attorneys may not agree, but they're there to make sure.
They want them to have a good defense. They just want them to be guilty still. Be found guilty.
They get a fair and
Whether they're guilty or not.
impartial trial, not attack people personally or their character or come up with outrageous conspiracy theories.
Y'all are the one that came up with the conspiracy theory. Y'all are the one.
To mislead the jury. That's not their job.
And why do you feel that
By misleading the jury, you mean give them all the information that was presented. Or not that was presented, but that was all the information that was taken.
this
That they should be presented.
defense was over the top?
Well, I think lack of evidence
Defense was over the top.
is not their job.
And why do you feel that this defense was over the top?
Well, I think lack of evidence and lack of the law being on their side. So they were using smoke screens and distractions and trying to.
Yeah, the law wasn't on their side. You can say that again. This guy and the law wasn't on their side. You can say
Plant those
that.
seeds of doubt, but they weren't doing it in the most professional way, in my opinion.
And what is the most professional way to fucking gaslight the public and to cut off all fucking communication so nobody knows what the fuck is going on, and to put somebody in solitary confinement and pressure them and fucking give them Halidol until they confess?
Anything you'd like to say now that the gag order's up? Anything from behind the scenes that the public should know that was happening?
No, not really. I think you covered it. I'm just proud of the investigative team. I'm proud of the prosecution. I think it's not necessarily closure, but there's
It's not closure because you know that you didn't get the right fucking guy.
two holes in our hearts that are never going to be filled. But justice was served.
To 130 years in prison, 2 consecutive 60. Richard Allen was sentenced yesterday, December 20th, 2020. I feel like I just wanted to come back to understand a little bit more about the last moments of Abby and Libby. I'm so grateful that justice has been served. And so I also just wanted to explain a couple more things. I want to show everybody the creek that they crossed. According to Richard Allen's confessions, Abby and Libby crossed this creek right here, and they were naked, and it was cold. And so I actually want
What?
to point something out. As I was walking down here, I had my ear pods in. I was kind of in a zone because just kind of inward.
The fuck is she wearing?
And I looked down, and I had my hands like this, and I was like this because I was cold. It's very cold out here. It's about 9 degrees colder than it was that February, but I have multiple layers on, and I didn't cross a freezing creek in February. And what I thought of when I looked down and saw this, I just want to say is, this is the exact way Abby was found. And as I've tried to process what I think happened, and this is my own speculation and my own thoughts, I think that Abby, being under 100 pounds, according to the coroner, that she was freezing. She was absolutely freezing. Maybe she was going through hypothermia. They crossed this creek right here, and sweet Libby gave her her clothes. She was freezing. She put on her clothes. They didn't know what was coming, or else I do believe they would have ran. And they walked over here with Richard Allen because Richard Allen was scared about the white van he just saw, so he made them cross that creek. And then they come this way. The bridge, by the way, is over there. The bridge is over there. And so he takes him here, he makes him cross this creek because he's scared of the cars. And look, there's a car right there. There's a slow down. So that's what he saw. You see that car there? Yeah. So they come this way.
Is this the interview she's talking about?
Susan Hendricks has had a long career in journalism, including being a news anchor on CNN and HLN. She started reporting on the Delphi murders soon after they happened, and she recounts her journey in the new book titled Down the Hill: My Descent into the Double Murder in Delphi, which is available in paperback, hardcover, and ebook.
She thinks the clothes were wet whenever she gave them. What a fucking idiot.
Some of them like hide behind fake names and fake pictures. They won't even put their real selves out there. So it's like,
They're not. And the people who bring up family members just want the heart of this family that's gone.
you have a chapter on armchair detectives. Family members of murder victims have to deal with the trauma if the case remains unsolved. But then, like in this case of the Delphi murders, some of these family members have been accused online. What are some of the good and bad aspects you've discovered about the true crime community?
Well, speaking on the Petitos, I think they were wonderful. I believe it was on TikTok, and Joe Petito even said, like, I can't believe
Yeah, she said yes. Yeah.
the attention it got. And they found the van. Remember that? They found the van. So I think it's a good thing. And even Superintendent Doug Carter said, if their heart's in the right place, if their intentions are good, it's great. I mean, who doesn't want input, right? But it can also be detrimental. And I found that there's certain layers. I've been, of course, on this case from the start, but just seeing how it's evolved, and there's different levels. I just think in life, there's good people and there's not so good people, and their intentions are good or they're not. And the people who bring up family members just want the clicks, and it's ridiculous. It's not even worth
The people that bring up the family members just want the clicks.
mentioning, but to me, it's like the lowest of the low, because they're already hurting. It's like, really, you want to go after them? Okay. And slowing down interviews that they did, and thinking of what he or she really meant. It's bizarre. So
And a lot of them like hide behind fake names and fake pictures. They won't even put their real selves out there. So it's like, would you say this to Libby's grandmother if you saw her at a
Never.
restaurant?
I would tell her. I would tell her I think Richard Allen's innocent, and I think the real killer is still out there.
Thank you. I know.
never.
So why are you doing it online, hiding behind a fake profile?
Never. I know.
Why are you doing that? Hiding behind a fake profile? Maybe because your side of the fucking aisle will swap people.
No, it's bizarre, and I can't believe it exists. And I even said to Kelsey, like, I don't know, sometimes I would feel like suing them. I mean, it feels like the Wild West
Suing them?
out there. Like,
Could you imagine her suing somebody, Kelsey suing somebody for them bringing her name up, and then during trial they find a fucking hair of hers wrapped around the fucking victim's finger?
Anything goes with no repercussions, but does she need that headache? I kind of just threw that out there, but it's mean. At the end of the day, it's mean, it's bullying. Stop it.
In early 2019, a woman named Hannah Shakespeare went to Delphi to make a documentary, and she told law enforcement that they need to release more information. This was like maybe 2 months before the April 2019 press conference that you went to.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe law enforcement knew that a documentary was coming out and said, okay, we need to reevaluate, and they went with the younger guy's sketch that they released. As a journalist, what role do you think that the media can play in addition to just providing facts about a case?
I saw her documentary. I thought she did an excellent job. I truly did. But after interviewing Tobe and different law enforcement officials who were there, I feel like they learned to not be reactionary to us being there because there were so many requests. I mean, think about it. You're Tobe, all of a sudden this happens and it's the biggest thing and you're trying your best. And I felt for him during the times of when there were names that would come up, right? And he would give out a statement, we're looking into that person. And then that became the headline. This could be the person. So that became the headline. And then he just shut down completely and said, we're not saying anything. This is a blackout. And then I think it snowballed from there. I don't know if you could go back in time, if that would be the way they would do it again. But I felt for them because I still don't know exactly what went on in the investigation. I still don't know whose idea it was with the sketches and what was released. I was listening again to Doug Carter, and he did an interview with the local news in Indiana, and he said it was the absolute right decision at the time. And he did always say this, though, the sketches aren't photographs. And depending on who saw it, to me, Becky always said this, look, if you're young, you're going to think someone looks older. If you're old, you're going to say someone looks younger. So the sketch thing to me, it's like, well, who was the witness? Who said it? And what do they really look like? And what can you remember? And he did say in this particular interview, isn't it amazing that it looks a lot like one and a little like the other, depending on the eye of the beholder? And I know that's confusing, right, to us on the outside, thinking, well, what do they mean and who is it? Of course, confusing for the family members. But now some people, put it together and they maybe see
I'm going to listen to a little bit about Anthony Shots, and then we'll...
their time.
I'm going to get off here. I just really wanted to watch that interview with Susan and Lauren.
Somebody also asked, at this point, do you think that Anthony Schatz or Kegan Kline is involved with the Delphi murders?
I don't, and I base that solely on that he was never charged with the murders. That's all I can say, but I don't believe he was.
I know there's a lot of things that seem like they could have matched up, and I know there's a ton of interest in him and his father over the past few years, but police have known about the two of them for 6 years, and they have not charged either one. So
yeah, I don't think
also,
catfishing equates to murder. Or I know there were
What about child porn? Does that equate to murder?
things that led people to believe that. And by no means am I on a high horse saying I know things that I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is he was never charged. So that's why I'm sticking by, no, he wasn't involved.
And also the defense has all this discovery, and in this recent September 8th thing, they did not mention Ron Logan or Kegan Kline one single time. So it seems like they have not even seen any evidence pointing towards either of those two people.
And I understand why the names were mentioned. Of course, Ron Logan, I mean, the girls' bodies were found on his property. Of course, he's going to be a suspect early on. It would be weird if he wasn't, right? I mean, that's who you're going to interview. They never ruled out anyone. They never did. Even family members, they would never say, because I asked Tobe this, like, is he still a suspect? We don't rule anyone out. So anyone. So it was open.
So they didn't rule anybody out, but you think people are just the scum of the earth for also not ruling people out?
Open to interpretation, but early on they told the families about Ron Logan, of course, because that's where the girls' bodies were found. Mm-hmm. And you saw the probable cause affidavit with Ron Logan. I mean, it seemed convincing to me, right, with the where he was at the fish store and all of that, but he was never arrested. So to me that meant maybe not ruled out, but then when someone was arrested, it said, okay, then they have something, because before no one was taken into custody.
And you met Ron Logan during one of your trips to Delphi, correct?
I did, yeah. I spoke to him on set. I believe it was the next day. So it's a live interview from set. So I hear him in my ear. They say, we got the guy who's the girls' bodies were found on the property. You're up in 2 minutes. So that's really all I know. I know his name, and I talked to him then and said something similar. This is shocking to me. It could have been my son's. This is horrible. And then when I was there, after the car ride to the bridge with Kelsey, we went to the bridge. We were coming back. It was freezing. It was about 9 degrees, and it was so cold. I couldn't feel my hands or my lips. And he just came. It seemed to come out of nowhere, and he just said, they ruined my life. And I said, who did? He said, the cops ruined my life, and they arrested me, and people stole my furniture.
He came out of nowhere, and the cops ruined his life. Yeah, she's something else. Man, I just can't even believe it. Yeah, old guys, that's their fucking specialty. Knowing what happens on their property.
It seemed to come out of nowhere, and he just said, they ruined my life. And I said, who did? He said, the cops ruined my life, and they arrested me, and people stole my furniture when I was in jail, and they ruined me, and I didn't do anything, and
But whenever Richard Allen says it's all over, whenever they've done that to him, then he's guilty. But whenever Ron Logan does it, it's totally normal.
Because I was thinking could he have done it? But no, he just came off as an older man who was hurt. I think he just got
But I just thought,
out of prison, or, he just seemed angry and hurt.
he seemed angry and hurt. That seems suspicious.
Gave so many on-camera interviews as a reporter and journalist. Do you think that would be odd that a person who killed Abby and Libby on his property would say, okay, Inside Edition, everybody else, let me take you down to the crime scene, and hopefully as a
No, haven't you seen that one guy that did the interview where he was a law student and he killed his law student neighbor, and he was fucking giving interviews, and he found out that they found the body while he was on camera giving an interview?
27-year-old man, I'm not going to start sweating. I mean, does that seem odd to you? That to me, it shows that I don't think that he had a part in the murders.
Well, getting to know the people I've gotten to know, like Carrie Rawson and BTK, I mean, he inserted himself in a lot of that. And Carrie had no idea what he was capable of and what he did. So I don't know if the interviews would necessarily rule him out. It may be someone inserting themselves, which we've seen before in different cases. So I don't know what the experts know, like a Paul Holes, who said at times they want to be in it. They want to be in the mix. They want to be there. And I think that goes back to the presser of April 2019, where Doug Carter said, we believe you're from Delphi or once lived here, and we believe you could be in this room, meaning we invited everyone. Because I remember them taking my name as soon as I kept walking in and out, because I had to do live shots. And the really nice ladies who were volunteers at the table were told to take signatures. So they kept saying, did you sign in? Did you sign in? It was very important for them to get people to sign in. I didn't put two and two together then, but I know that they maybe thought he was going to show up because this might be his heyday or his time to shine or his remembrance of this. So maybe that wouldn't rule someone out that would want to be on TV talking about something that they may have done. But I think early on they investigated him, obviously, now that we know about the PCA, and it appeared they ruled him out.
Yeah, I know, because they were going to be able to charge him with lying about his alibi, but they dropped that. So I don't think that they really had any connection to the Delphi murders, or else they would have at least charged him for lying about the alibi at that point in time.
Right, exactly.
When you were going to Delphi, did you have any theory about who this could have been or what the motive could have been?
No.
And if she did, it wouldn't matter because she's a dumbass.
I remember reading about the Flora fires because I remember that being a story and reading up on that on my flight there, but never really having a theory. Or I just thought
whatever the police tell me, that's what I'll believe.
There when I got there, when I saw the bridge, how different it really is. You can read about a story, you can sit on set and talk about a story, you can do interviews, but until you're really there and see that bridge in person, it was enormous. It was 60, I believe, 2-3 feet high, and it was terrifying to me. But that doesn't mean it was terrifying to them. They're 13, 14. It seems like a fun place to be. You feel invincible down there, and they're used to it. They're not afraid. I wouldn't have been afraid either. But I think knowing what I knew at that particular time, because it took a while to get down there, that's when I understood that, okay, he is local, because this takes about 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. And
yeah, he's local. Maybe the call's coming from inside the house.
And the photojournalist from CNN said, look, we can't get arrested. We're going to hold back here. We just got to call our boss. And I said, all right, I'm just going to walk a little. And then I started to feel fearful because I'm walking down there alone, not too far, about 30, 40 feet. And I thought, oh maybe I should turn around, because it felt very kind of
And I love how the shelves the shelves behind her just has her book right there, and like 2 other fake books.
dense with a lot of trees. It felt to me, because you think in the middle of the day, how could this happen? But I could see how it could happen down
The lengths they'll go to rationalize this shit.
there, because it felt really isolating. And maybe because my perspective was after the fact, the 2 young girls were murdered, but I felt like there were some areas that you could go to. It wasn't wide open to the public by any means. You had to know where that was to get there.
How far out on the bridge did you go? Did you walk?
No. It's so funny. One of the photojournalists, Lionel, said, can you go just like
Isn't it funny how she said she went to the bridge, but she didn't actually walk on the bridge? And that's not suspicious, but whenever Richard Allen says he went to the trails and he did step on the bridge, that is suspicious. Yeah, the giant chess piece, the fucking, all the weird shit, the fucking, the pepper grinder.
a foot just to do a stand up? And I took one step and I froze. I've always been afraid of heights, and that was terrifying. I couldn't even step a foot. I remember talking to Paul Holes about it, going back to him. He said he was there, he's scared of heights. He got 10 feet out. To me, that's an amazing feat, because there are wide gaps. And I know it's been kind of refurbished since, part of it, but it is, to me, a death trap. And seeing, after I saw the bridge and I thought, wait a minute, that
Oh yeah, she probably can't even fucking play checkers. She probably can't even fucking play tic-tac-toe.
video of, well, he wasn't walking at the time, so we just saw the still shot, but he's looking down. To me, I thought it would be kind of a casual pose, someone just walking on a sidewalk or maybe a bridge that was, I don't know, 10 feet up. And when I saw that, I thought, he knows this area. How can you not, to kind of put your head down and walk, and with your hands in your pocket?
But still, I thought he knows this area, but I still don't have any suspicions of the guy who owns the property that I'm standing on.
It's acting casually.
So you have hosted several panels at CrimeCon, and what are some of the things that you've learned by interviewing people who have experienced unexpected tragedy?
Well, this is the year, it's Orlando. I've been there several years. And my idea for
Yeah, she's talking about Paul Holes, which I actually like Paul Holes.
this year, and Kevin Balfe, who put it on, is just a wonderful
I mean, I don't like the whole propaganda side of it, but I think he's a good guy.
person, and wow, what a
Yeah, she loves to name drop him.
community he's gotten together through the years. And I wanted it to be, I wouldn't mention the case that was out.
Paul Holes originally got famous through My Favorite Murder. Well, not through My Favorite Murder, but he helped solve the Golden State Killer case with genetic genealogy, and he got famous through there, and now he's got a few podcasts.
There, it's like whoever I bring together, it was going to be about how they have navigated through what happened to them. And Stacy Chapin, Ethan Chapin's mom, of course, as you know, from the Idaho murder, agreed to be there on the panel with Becky, with Tara. And it just was an extraordinary panel that it's hard to even describe what it was like.
See, she was talking about some interview she did with Tom Webster where, like, there was people in the chat, and she was like, telling him to fuck off. I wonder what interview that was, because I haven't been able to find it. That would be funny to watch.
Remember Yardley Love? Oh, she was murdered, University of Virginia.
Yeah, I didn't come up with that term, but it's, which, I mean, certain cops I do like and respect, and you know, investigators and stuff. It's just, there is a whole genre of true crime that is just pro cop no matter what. And like the Small Town Dicks podcast, Paul Holes is on that, and I think that is kind of like a propaganda podcast. But I kind of like it too. It's like not too much, you know, but I don't know. I just go into those things and listen with diligence, and you know, I know the information, who it's coming from, and I just, you know, discern.
Cross player. Her mom, Sharon, was on the panel as well. And also BTK's daughter, who I've gotten very close to, Carrie Rawson, she was there as well. She has a bit of humor about her everywhere I went.
Did you begin to wonder if Bridge Guy would ever be arrested as it dragged on year after year?
I did. I thought it was weird. I thought, because I was asked that from my parents, my friends, people that I worked with at CNN, like, well, why haven't they gotten them? Asking me like I knew, meaning that because they had the recording and the walk and it was such a small town that it was really perplexing and shocking to everyone.
Libby's grandmother said before he was arrested that when a suspect was finally arrested, she thought she'd be screaming from the rooftops. And when it finally came to happen, she said it was a lot more subtle. Was your reaction different than what you maybe expected it would be?
Because I think she thought for so many years, okay, we have a goal, we have a focus, and that is hand out the sketch, and we got to get this guy, and convincing people to hand it out too, and at CrimeCon advocating constantly for Libby and Abby. I mean, nonstop, and they were building the memorial park at the same time, and that was their goal. That's what they were able to focus on. And I remember Paul Holes on stage at CrimeCon in Las Vegas. He said no one was in custody at this point at all. And he just said, when someone is arrested, he said, in my experience with the Golden State Killer is there is kind of a letdown. It's a different stage of what you have to go through, of grieving, meaning so.
Yeah, but the Golden State Killer was much different because people had actual closure. They knew the DNA connected him. They knew it was him for multiple reasons. They had circumstantial evidence, they had physical evidence, they had the whole gamut. They had witnesses, they knew the size of his penis. All of it. And none of that is the case with this. There's nothing. There's literally nothing. But the only physical evidence is junk science. Which is why I know in my heart this is going to get, knock on wood, turned over on appeal. But anyway, I'm going to get off here and, do my laundry and do my Saturday stuff. But Shabugs was sick. She's got the vid. She's down with the sickness. So we're going to reschedule our pig roast for next week. So I wanted to just hop on here and do something. Get it out of my system. Get the rage, But thank you guys for joining. I appreciate you and being active in the chat. Thank you. I appreciate it. You guys are the best. You guys are my friends, my cranks. Glad I found you guys.